Sure.
You know,
No, that's a
if
good.
you,
Well, what would you say? Hex derivatives are an
Mhm.
interesting conversation because a lot of people have they have issues. So like one of the things you see a lot on Twitter, I can't remember who was it that posted it the other day. You'll when I say it, you'll know it. So
Yeah.
some of these people more recently, they're like, oh, I wish that instead of creating all these shit coins. I wish that people would have just bought Hex. If they would have just done
Ivan.
that, Hex would
That
be
was
way
Ivan.
up instead of money being diluted across all these different derivatives. What would you say to that?
Yeah, so it's kind of like with the thing I was talking about with Hedron, where like the argument makes sense. It's like superficially true. I just think it lacks like proper context or proper framing. I think the framing is wrong. Because if you look at it from like, yes, different tickers with different liquidity pools USDC or ETH away from the main ticker that you're looking at. Like that is true. The question is like, at what magnitude does it do it? And the other question is, are there other benefits these tickers are providing the main one that it simply wouldn't have without it? So one of the fair criticisms about Hex, which is like it's like a double-edged sword for X. The greatest thing about it is also its biggest weakness, and that is it's mutable. So because it's immutable, there's nothing else to really talk about. This is the same thing I was talking about with me wanting to potentially start a channel about it. I was like, well, there's nothing to say. We've kind of figured it out. And now we just do it and then wait for price appreciation and our stakes to come out, which in of itself is a good thing. Like kind of having boring money that is reliable is a good thing. But because it's still crypto and part of like that speculation aspect, or at the very least, speculation has what in the past 3 years driven the price to go up to crazy amounts. A lot of people buying versus a lot of people buying and people not selling until the sellers come down and create volatility to the downside. When you lose some speculative stickiness due to a lack of updates over time or a lack of news over time, that it can be interpreted as weight on that specific asset. Now, fortunately, Richard Hart has created Pulse Chain and this whole new sandbox of coins that are different tickers that will quote unquote pull money away from Hex. But yet, because of that, we have more things to talk about. And because we have more things to talk about, we have more what I like to call like intellectual stickiness around the Hex product.
And so also, I think what another thing it does is it compounds the amount of eyeballs that are looking into the ecosystem, because everybody who's just looking directly at Hex is like, okay, that's just Hex. That's been here for 4 years. We know that. And now there's all these other new shiny objects coming out that correlate back to Hex that is going to inevitably or inversely pump Hex by bringing people into the ecosystem. But